This is breaking news.
The whole world is watching to see how Portland is going to show up.
Hundreds of Oregon National Guard troops expected to hit Portland streets by the end of this week. State military officials tell Katu they expect troops to be on the ground by Thursday, possibly even earlier. The Trump administration ordered 200 troops to the city to prevent damage to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement building in South Portland. The move already being met with lawsuits, protests, and even arrests.
In fact, hundreds of protesters gathered outside the ICE facility in South Portland last night, some now facing charges. Portland police adding additional officers to monitor the situation.
More than a dozen Oregon mayors coming together in just the last hour. The group demanding answers from the president and pleading with protesters to not escalate the situation.
And Oregon filing a request for a temporary restraining order seeking to stop the deployment before any troops can hit the ground. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us for K2 News at 4 o'clock. I'm Deborah Knapp.
And I'm Rick Asway. We have complete coverage of the situation outside the ICE facility in South Portland, how local and state officials are pushing back, and what could unfold over the next 60 days.
Our team coverage begins right now. K2's Shelby Slaughter is live in downtown near the Portland Police Bureau. So Shelby, Chief Bob Day says the National Guard isn't needed here in Portland.
Yeah, Deb, during that press conference, he says that there's only a small portion of Portland that we're talking about that is facing disruption. He says so far they've only arrested 2 protesters and says they will still have eyes on the ICE facility. More than a dozen protesters starting their Monday at the ICE facility in South Portland. Some bringing along tents and grills, while others just showed up with signs.
With the ICE facility,
Portland Police Chief Bob Day hosting a press conference to share what his team knows, as many wait for the National Guard to arrive in Portland.
Is there a myth or a misconception since this news broke that you're like, oh, I just wish people understood this?
yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, and it's been highlighted so many times so well, but I just want to emphasize, this is one city block.
Day says what's happening here in Portland doesn't rise to the level of federal agents being deployed. He says local law enforcement has it under control.
But it is frustrating, but we're going to continue to stay the course.
While out at the ICE facility, we bumped into County Commissioner Julia Brim Edwards, who tells me she was just driving by and wanted to stop and talk to the people who are protesting the National Guard's arrival.
I saw you go up to every single person on the street this afternoon.
Yeah, a variety of things. So first, there's a lot of concern that the National Guard is coming in. There's concerns about the president's rhetoric, that this is a unsafe place to be in Portland. So part of what we were communicating with each other as people who live here, who work here, that this is a safe community. We don't need the military here, and also we need to protect our neighbors.
And another thing that was brought up during this press conference was people who have reported hearing a helicopter overhead. And so somebody did ask about that. And Chief Bob Day says it's actually not the Bureau's helicopter. And frankly, he's not sure whose helicopter it would be. Reporting in downtown Portland, I'm Shelby Slaughter, K2 News.
Shelby, thank you for that. And I want to give you some context on the ICE facility at the center of all this. The building's on South Macadam Avenue, about 5 to 10 minutes south of the downtown core, on the west side of the Willamette River. People are largely protesting in the blocks immediately surrounding the building. That facility is on a surface street below I-5, backs up to train tracks where a trolley operates. There's also a school nearby and a Tesla dealership.
K2 is on your side working to hear from the White House, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and local Republicans. We've received statements and social media posts from many of those who support the president's order. We shared those with you over the weekend. We've also heard from Oregonians who welcome the National Guard. Here is the federal government's response. In a June 7th memo, the White House said violent protests were threatening agents who were just trying to do their job. This came amid protests in Los Angeles. The memo also cited a need to protect federal property. The Portland memo mentions that original directive and says the Guard will be here to protect property where protests are occurring or are likely to occur. Within the last hour, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi issued a new memo about political violence against ICE. She mentioned Portland, saying what's happening here reflects the recent statistics from DHS that found there's been a 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE officers from January through about August of this year. Over the same time period last year, she's directing federal agents to defend ICE facilities and directing local police to a temporary ICE protection task force, among other things. And last week, Bondi tweeted a video saying she would be deploying federal agents to ICE facilities around the country.
These are not peaceful protests. These are coordinated attacks by radical extremists, and they end now.
She threatened prison time for anyone who interferes or closely interacts with federal officers. In August, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says the acts of violence are fueled by sanctuary politicians' rhetoric, vilifying law enforcement.
And this is brand new at 4. A coalition of Oregon mayors uniting against this increased federal presence in Portland.
Today, 17 mayors denouncing the deployment of federal forces in the Portland metro area. Let's go to Katu's Tanvi Verma for the latest. Tanvi.
So, Deb, we just got out of the press conference, and let me tell you, we learned a lot about what's in this joint statement. But first of all, I want to mention that there were mayors from all over the state, not just the metro area. So mayors from Eugene and Gladstone. Now, let's get into what's actually in the joint statement. It demands that federal law enforcement officers adhere to the same standards of local law enforcement officers. Specifically, it says they need to follow local rules of officer self-identification, chemical munition restrictions, body-worn camera policies, and use of force. The coalition says it's also going to be working together to research federal immigration activity so they can address the issue. Here's what the mayor of Tualatin had to say about what he feels is going on.
The joint statement signed by the region's mayors sends a clear message. The Portland metro area is safe, thriving, and fully capable of governing itself. Let me be clear. Our communities are peaceful. We are not in crisis. We are not under siege.
The coalition says that militarized federal agents have really hurt the city of Portland. That is, compromising community relationships with local law enforcement, inflaming protesters, and having hurt the city's reputation. Earlier today, we spoke to protesters outside the ICE facility. They tell us why they think protesting is necessary.
I think part of the reason we're seeing some action from Portland City Council about this is because we have made such a stink here. I think if we had all just stayed home, it wouldn't be on their radar as much, and they wouldn't, like, this is communicating to Portland City Council, this matters to us. This also communicates to ICE that we are not afraid of them. We will still be here. They can beat us, they can tear gas us, they can shoot at us. We are not afraid of them.
We've reached out to ICE for their take on not just what protesters have told us, but also what the city of Portland and other mayors have said. We did not hear back, though last week they did give us a statement in regard to the city cracking down on ICE. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security says upholding federal law and order doesn't stop because the city doesn't welcome it. They say lending no hand to ICE is lending a hand to criminals. We also reached out to cities that did not sign on to this joint statement, such as Troutdale and Woodburn, and the mayors from those cities tell us that they didn't know about it in time to weigh in either way. Reporting live in downtown, Tanvi Verma, K2 News.
Tanvi, thanks for that. Oregon's Attorney General filed a request for a temporary restraining order. He wants a judge to stop the deployment of the National Guard by President Trump.
It is part of a larger lawsuit filed by the state and the city. K2's Daryl Burke breaks down the arguments from both sides.
Portland Police's Assistant Chief of Operations arguing federal intervention is unnecessary, writing, since July 18, 2025, Central Precinct officers have carried out routine monitoring of the ICE facility protests without serious incident. In that time, the risks posed by nightly ICE facility protests have not merited anything more than standard, periodic monitoring like any other neighborhood in the city. It's part of a larger lawsuit from the state of Oregon and the city of Portland, citing Title 10 of the United States Code, which states the National Guard may only be federalized in certain cases like invasion or rebellion. Attorney General Dan Rayfield says this is not the case in Oregon. President Trump, however, argues that Title 10 justifies the deployment in Portland to protect ICE agents and federal property. Trump posting to Truth Social this weekend that Portland is, quote, under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. The president did something similar in June when sending troops to Los Angeles. Earlier this month, A California judge ruled that order was not legal. That ruling is cited by the city and the state in this lawsuit.
We already have another judge who's looked at very similar facts and concluded that the president does not have the authority to do what he wanted to do. A judge here could simply say, well, I agree completely with what happened down there and essentially copy the opinion. But there's no guarantee.
Tung Yin, a law professor at Lewis and Clark, says the ruling in California may be a legal precedent for an Oregon judge to follow, but Yin says a universal ruling by the highest court may be what's needed.
What you ultimately would need is a decision at the Supreme Court level that would say, this isn't just LA or Portland or any other city. We're saying that in any of these situations in the United States, the rule is whatever it turns out to be.
In Portland, Daryl Burke, K2 News.
There is a phone call hearing over the Attorney General's request happening right now. K2's a crew listening in on that hearing, and we'll bring you any updates as we get them.
We want to know what you think. So take out your phone, point your phone camera to the screen right now. This is a QR code. It'll take you to a poll, and you can vote. We're asking, how do you feel about a federal deployment to the ICE facility in Portland? Again, weigh in by pulling out your phone camera, point it to the QR code on your screen. You can see 47% right now fully agree that it is necessary, and 43% fully disagree, not needed at all.